Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our INICIVOX Mentor SkillShare Networking Edition. I am so glad to be here and I cannot wait to welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, go ahead and say hello to me in the chat so that I know you're here. And all right. Look at that, Penn State student, right front and center. Annabelle is here. Welcome everybody. So again, welcome to our INICIVOX Mentor SkillShare Networking Edition. I'm Amy Summers and I'm founder and president of INICIVOX and Pitch Publicity. I'll also be moderating our panel today. So let's get started because I want to introduce our mentor panelists and orient everyone to our session today. Hi, Bianca. All right, fire up that chat. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're coming from because I just told our mentors that are going to be on the panel. We might have a mix of professionals and students in here, so please let us know where you are joining us from, what city, what school. All right, so at INICIVOX, our goal is to equalize mentorship through virtual means, simplifying the process of connecting with mentors. We remove barriers and create more access, delivering mentorship to accelerate your career development, regardless of your current stage. Our mentorship format is a win-win, providing you valuable insights for immediate career growth and enabling mentors to reach a broader audience, unlike the less accessible one-on-one, let's go grab coffee approach of the past. So this session will be brief. So we're going to jump right into introductions and your questions. And as I introduce our panelists, please use the Q&A box. So there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and fire that up. And you're going to submit your questions there. So if you already have a question, go ahead and drop it for me there because as soon as I'm done introducing Sam, Tori, and Bob, I'm going to go right into your questions. Let me know on your question specifically who you want to direct the question to. And we'll be inviting some of our attendees on camera to ask their question. But to be considered for this, I want you to add to your question that you want to be on camera. So if you want to be on camera, just say, I want to be on camera with your question. And if you don't request this, then I'll ask your question for you. Alternatively, you can also opt to just ask an anonymous question, and I won't even mention your name. So there is that option in the Q&A box. To ensure effective interaction with our mentors during this session, I really encourage you to request camera time when asking questions. That way they have a face to your name, and who knows, that could lead to something in the future. When I invite you on stage, Zoom is going to prompt you to confirm camera access. So simply click confirm. You're going to wait for a few seconds without touching anything else on your screen. It might feel like you're leaving the Zoom room, but don't worry, you're just joining us on stage. And then once on stage, you're going to turn your video and your microphone on and then ask your question. And then after your question is addressed, I'll just automatically return you to the audience. You don't need to press any buttons, and Zoom will just take you right back into the audience. So please use the chat box. You're already using the chat box, some of you, to share your thoughts, reactions to any of our mentors' feedback, or just to engage in discussions with your fellow attendees. I mean, we are doing a networking session here, so please fire that chat up. Any questions though, use the Q&A box because if you put your question in the chat, I might miss it. Additionally, when using the chat, just make sure that your comments are to everyone. So you select the drop down that says choosing everyone. And that way we can maintain a public conversation. And so with all of those details out of the way, let's get going. And don't forget, drop me your questions in the Q&A box starting now. So first up is Sam Joshi. He's a global business leader with more than 20 years of cross-industry experience, specifically advancing the dietary supplement industry. As Chief Operating Officer and Commercial Officer at CFAM, he drives international growth, builds strategic partnerships, and leads high-performing teams across sales and marketing. He also serves as CFO and secretary of 1,000 Plus, a nonprofit dedicated to transforming the first 1,000 days of life from conception to age 2 into a foundation for lifelong health. Known for his natural people skills and collaborative leadership, Sam has mastered the art of connecting across cultures and industries, making him an expert in purposeful networking that drives business success and meaningful relationships. So I first met Sam when he was at a company called Omni Actives. And today he's still my client at CFAM. So I'm always been impressed how he effortlessly connects people. And it just seems like no matter who you meet, all roads lead back to Sam, which is why I knew I had to have you on this panel. Welcome, Sam.
Appreciate it, Amy. Thank you for all those words. Looking forward to it.
All right, so next up is Tori Bass. She is a seasoned business development leader with more than a decade of experience driving client growth and elevating practice visibility at top law firms, including White and Case, Baker McKenzie, Paul Hastings, and the Ack and Gump. At Gibson Dunn, where she is now, she serves as senior manager leading client development for IP litigation, tech and innovation, and life sciences, helping sophisticated legal practices expand in competitive and innovation-driven sectors. Tori is a master connector, and boy, can she put on a good party. I'm telling you guys, if you haven't thought about this as a career path, you better look into the law firms. She empowers lawyers to build dynamic, market-facing practices and create meaningful professional relationships. And I met Tori when I first moved to New York City through our University of Florida Alumni Association, the Gotham Gators. Go Gators. Any Gators in the chat, please say hello to Tori. I always recommend that students, when you move to a city, that you get involved with your alumni association because you meet great people like Tori. And I've seen Tori in action because she's invited me to some of these law parties, which are amazing. And she connects really top professionals across the country. Welcome, Tori.
Thank you.
And go Gators. All right, so last we have, rounding out our panel, is Bob Martin, who has led Penn State's Belsario College of Communications Office of Internships and Career Placement for more than 25 years, helping thousands of students secure meaningful internships and launching successful careers. Any Penn State students here? You better give me a shout out for Bob in the chat. His team meets individually with more than 1,250 students every year on resume and cover letter reviews, LinkedIn strategies, salary negotiation, and of course, networking. Bob also organizes multiple communications-focused career fairs and speaker series, connecting students with top employers in New York, DC, and beyond. So I first met Bob when I was onboarding one of our first interns at Pitch Publicity, who is a student at Penn State right now, Leah Weiss. She was a freshman actually when she was trying to get an internship. And I remember specifically because Leah told me that, oh, Leah, are you in the chat? You want to say hi to Bob? Leah told me that Bob was going to have to vet me and my company before they allowed us to have any internships. But I passed, so we are Penn State official over here. We can take students on for interns. But since then, I've seen Bob in action. Pitch Publicity has gone to Sex and the City Career Fair in New York City, and his ability to network with students and top businesses is just truly unmatched. And the results really speak for themselves. And if you are a Penn State student, I mean, I'm a Gator, so it's a lot for me to say this, but if you're a Penn State student, you are so lucky to have Bob Martin. I think every interview I do with a Penn State student, Bob, I always ask, now, how did you learn about this internship? They're like, Bob Martin. So welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy. It's great to be here.
Good. All right. So I see some questions that are starting to come into our chat. I would like to see a few more come in. Before we get going, remember it's good to get that camera time. It's good practice to ask your questions live and get direct answers. And again, you're going to make some really good connections today. So I'm just going to warm things up for us a little bit. And we're just going to go around the Zoom room here right now and ask an opening question. I'm going to start this question with Sam. But what's the biggest networking mistake people make and how can they fix it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'm going to tell you, I think it's people start too late because they don't realize the value of a network. I have two daughters who are very young, and I realize that all this networking really begins around playgrounds and all these little events they go to. That's really solidifying this kind of basis of concept of a network, right? Yes, these aren't executives who are going to help them move things along in their lives, but they're learning how to interact and engage and come across similarities and commonalities between themselves, which is kind of the basis of how you create the concept of networking and how you do the networking. So that's my short of it.
All right, Tori, what's the biggest networking mistake people make and how can they fix it?
I think the biggest mistake is people often treat networking as a transactional exercise instead of relationship driven. It's 100% all relationship driven, and it's a long-term investment. It's a long-term gain. It's taking the time to remember small little details and following up and just, keep it moving and keep on the investment. You're asking, oftentimes, particularly in business, you're asking when you're trying to do business with someone, you're asking them for a favor. In essence, you're asking them to, give you money as in essence. And so first you need to show that investment in them because people want to work with the people that they like. It's a much, much more fun that way.
Well said. Bob, what's the biggest networking mistake people make and how can they fix it?
Yeah, I would say, Amy, it's being unprepared, not having a focus of what you want out of that meeting. But I also agree with what Sam said. This starts early. You want to become proficient at this early on in your life, and it's simply just going out and connecting with individuals that are going to have that can be reciprocal and mutually advantageous in those discussions, and just getting that practice down. But having a purpose and being prepared and knowing what you want out of that meeting, but being intentional and sincere, really critical.
All right, great. Okay, so we're going to get some of our attendees up here and we're going to start. I know that Maya has a question, so I'm going to bring Maya up on screen to ask her question. I believe her question is for Sam, so get ready for that. Sam is joining us today from Atlanta. And here is Maya. Hi, Maya.
Hi, how are you guys? Thank you all for being here. So, this question is for Sam. I've noticed that you've led a lot of teams across different regions. So, I wanted to know how do you adapt your networking to connect with people from diverse backgrounds?
Great question. Thanks, Maya. So I think, cultural sensitivities, and I'm a big believer in, cultures have different ways of operating and being sensitive to those is really important. So it's wherever you're going, whatever group you're going to lead. So if you're working, example, in India or Europe, right? There's different ways of operating and different ways of networking and engaging. So you got to understand how you're supposed to do it, right? What are the protocols, things like that. Understanding those briefly before you get into it. And then it's also allowing the person to, sometimes I can be a little bit overwhelming, right? So I allow that person to kind of show me how much they're willing to kind of accept my overwhelmingness. Yeah. And I let them lead that little dance, right? And so basically you come down to their level. So really it's a matter of going in there, knowing how the culture operates and letting them kind of take the first step in a way so you can reciprocate properly. That's kind of how I would do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yep. You got
All
it.
right. Thank you, Maya. I'm going to send you back and we're going to bring Annabelle back up now. She has a question, I believe, for Bob. So, a Penn State student, this should be easy answer for you, Bob.
All right.
Hi.
Hi,
Thank you all for
Annabelle.
joining. I have a question for Bob. So, what advice do you have for a senior who is currently navigating the job search, and how can they try to make meaningful connections before they graduate?
Yeah, great question, Annabelle. So first off, I mentioned earlier, intentional. Figure out what it is that what's your objective of that meeting, right? And connecting with those individuals. So first off, you want to make sure you connect with me because I probably can connect you right to those individuals, right? I've been in my role for a quarter century, so we've got a lot of connections probably directly related to your interests in the geographic location of where you want to be. So we've even deemed it as the magic 10. Connect yourself to 10 people that are doing the job that you want to do, managing the job you want to do, or previously did the job you want to do in the geographic location of where you want to be. That's the starting point, but it's not overwhelming if you have an intention. I want to hear from how you got your start. When you were in my shoes, what was it like? And you're going to see a lot of similarities to where you are. And I think that's going to ease a lot of your anxiousness in this process and really help you move forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's so helpful.
All right. And does anyone want to tag on to Annabelle's question? Maybe you remember from your college days. Any advice, Tori or Sam?
Yeah, so I when I went to school in a few different universities and somewhere in Europe, and I remember in my graduate school class there was 34 different nationalities represented, right? So there was an amazing ability to network and kind of expand my geographic reach into those countries and those nations. And I agree with Bob 100%, right? It's what is your intention? What do you got to really understand why you're doing this and what is the reciprocal thing that you're both going to get out of this for the future in the long term. And sometimes it's not about business. Sometimes it's about familial relationships, right, that you develop, and those are really important as well. So I think knowing what you want to get out of this, and sometimes it leads to business, other times it leads to personal, but having that in mind is really helpful. So I agree, Bob.
All right. Thank you so much, Annabelle. We're going to bring Leah up next. She has a question for Tori. And here she comes. Hi, Leah.
Hi, so this question is for Tori. So the legal industry is very relationship driven. How have you leveraged networking to create opportunities in such a competitive industry? And what advice would you give someone who's trying to break in?
Sure. You're absolutely 100% correct. It's all about relationships in the legal industry. It's twofold. Like in my type of role, the relationships that I need to build are with the partners and the lawyers because those are essentially my clients. Even though I am, an employee of the firm, you still have to really, especially with lawyers, you have to really do the time and show them that you understand what it is that they do because not all lawyers do the same thing. Especially when you work with IP lawyers, they love to say that nobody understands what they do. It's not true. You can figure out what they do. And it's also, learning about the market and learning about the clients so that you can bring value to the partners. It's about, showing up. Like my firm in particular, we don't actually have to be in the office. You can see I'm in an office. I'm actually in our DC office today. But, I go into the office and I sit on the floor where my lawyers are, and I'm like right there in the middle of them. So every time they walk by, they see me, they stop in, and it's about, those organic conversations where you can break down the divide. Because being on email and like just being a name on an email versus an actual human person, is a totally different dynamic. They need to see you as somebody that's a real person that brings value that they want to actually like tell you about so that you can actually be proactive instead of reactive. Lawyers in particular love to say, you guys are just reactive. You don't understand what we do. You don't have a law degree. No, I don't have a law degree, but I do have a master's in communications from USC. So I have an advanced degree just like they do. And it's not showing fear. And for someone trying to get into the industry, something that worked really well for me is when I first moved to New York after college. I have always worked in legal, but I was on the paralegal side. Moved to New York January 2009. Showed my age at the time because I was not thinking about the fact that the economy was terrible. And I got a job at a startup firm where I was the sole employee. So I had to do everything, including like the marketing side. At the time, I knew I wanted to go to grad school, but I didn't know in what. And for legal in particular, there's an amazing organization called the Legal Marketing Association. I went to, my firm actually allowed me to go to that annual conference, and I was the smallest firm represented. I didn't know anybody. And I'm they had a first timers reception, which they always do at that conference. And so I met a bunch of other legal marketers that were at larger firms. And so I kind of had buddies for that conference and learned what it was, exactly what they did. And that's when I learned that I wanted to go in the business development route. And then that's when I figured out that I wanted to do like a strategic corporate communications master's and all of that, which then really, trains your brain to think about things differently. And it's really, about being intentional and just building authentic relationships and showing what they do and how you can bring value.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Leah. I'm going to send you back. We have a question from Lily. She's not going to come on camera, but this is for Bob. And Lily wants to know, what's the best way to build a good relationship with a mentor or supervisor during an internship?
Yeah, I think Tori said it earlier and it said it extremely well, that this is a long haul. It's a marathon. This isn't a one-hit interaction. You're trying to build an honest relationship that can be reciprocal, mutually advantageous. But the most important thing is, if you did a great job on that internship, you have every reason to stay in touch with that individual. But a great way to do that is bring new information to the table after the internship, right? So if they were a mentor at that experience, you want to let them know that. Be genuine about that and heartfelt about your sincerity about how important that was to you. You're going to make them feel great. Let me tell you. If there's anything I hear about from our supervisors of our internship sites about students is they brought that robust energy that I remember feeling when I was 20 or 21 years old, man. And it gave me an invigorated sense about what I do at the age of 45. I'm not 45, by the way. Yeah, keep going. But the fact is that you're going to make them feel warm and welcome. And that's the way you always want to make them feel. But keep that energy going. But it's okay to bring up new information. Hey, I was in this public relations course, and what we discussed today in class resonated with exactly your MO about how you run your operation. It just made me smile, and how impactful the internship experience was this summer. I just wanted to reach out and tell you that. You didn't want anything. You didn't need anything. You wanted to let them know that. Boy, you want to talk about building a relationship? Reach out to them when you don't need anything. End of story.
That's a good point, Bob. And we have Lila. She's coming on. I'm going to promote her to panelist so she can come on stage with us. But just adding to what you said, I think it's important to tell people that they made an impact, because as leaders, like when we hear that makes us want to continue to do it. So welcome. I'm not sure I pronounced your name right, but can you introduce yourself? And I think you had a question for everybody, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So my name is Liala Wasonga. I'm a senior advertising major, philosophy minor from Chicago, Illinois, currently attending Howard University. And so pretty much this is a question for anyone on the panel. We were just talking about relationships and authenticity. So I was wondering, how can someone build authentic relationships in an industry that often feels transactional? Like, how do you really build an authentic relationship in business?
I'm happy to start on that, Amy. I will just say that's a great question, Liala. I am not a fan of doing things over Zoom when it's possible to meet face to face. Okay? Think about how many different Zoom meetings we have throughout the day. And it's really tough to decipher one from another. But you make the effort. Say you want to be in New York City in the ad agency business. Wouldn't it be smart to not only intern in New York City, so you know you've got a good feel, hey, this is where I want to go, that this solidified that's what I want to do, but get connected to the people face to face. Look, I still use coffee meetings as a great way to do that. You want to go to lunch, or you want to go just meet them at a quick diner for a bite or whatever it is. And I do recommend you pay for it. I know that can get real expensive, but like I said, a cup of coffee or, a chai latte, whatever it is. But find a way to connect with them. They're going to remember that situational meeting more than they would an interaction over Zoom.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think, Liala, your point is, it's a really valid one, right? I think in most business and industry that I've ever seen or been in, it takes time, right? These are not going to happen over time. So to Bob's point, it's you take that first initiative, and it could be a coffee. It could be, hey, let's just go meet at a park, right? And have a quick chat, right? Just simple things like that show you're initiating something, you're dedicated to starting something, right? And that's the initial step. And then again, it might take a few more meetings, right? To really, and again, vet that they're in it for the real reasons and the right reasons. It's a relationship, right? Every networking event or whatever is about building relationships, and it takes time. So, even the first time, if it doesn't go right or you don't feel like, hey, this is good, give it another shot. It's okay, right? So that's just my 2 cents.
And I agree with all of that. That's, kind of what I mentioned. I go into the office about 3 days a week deliberately so that I am able to build those relationships. But another, at one of the first large firms that I worked with at Aiken, we had this thing called AGBDU, Aiken Gump Business Development University, and every month they would bring in 2 different rainmaking partners to give a presentation to the entire partnership, the associates, everyone, and those were very interesting because it took different approaches. Some people are very introverted. Some people love parties, right? They love to be social butterflies, and they make a lot of connections, and they can, bring in business that way. But one partner that always stuck with me was this M&A partner who was very introverted. He did not love going to social things. He would never go to an alumni event and watch football with people. He just was not that, made him really uncomfortable. But what he did every single day was he came into the office and he kept a Post-it notes right next to his phone. And every day he wrote down one person's name. And before he left the office each day, he had to reach out to that person. And oftentimes it was not about a case thing. It would be, one example he gave, it was, his kid or this one client or target that he wanted. It wasn't even an active client. He knew that he remembered the guy talking about how his son was on a soccer league and that he had a big game coming up. So he emailed him hey, John, I'm just checking in to see how your son's game went. I know that's coming up. Has that happened? That was it. And he would just do those very quick check-ins to show that he was thinking about them and, not asking for work, not asking for anything, not asking him to do something for, him, which is really what the end game is. And 9 times out of 10, that led to a longer conversation. That example, the guy was wow, thanks for thinking of me. You know what? We're thinking of acquiring this company. Would love for your company to come in and pitch for this. It's those little things that are showing that you care about them. And it makes it more personal and intentional, authentic.
I love that. Great question. All right, I'm going to bring Dustin up. He has a question for Sam. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you back now to the audience. And as Dustin's coming up, questions are coming in. So we're going to get to all of these really soon. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, how are you, Amy?
Good.
Good. So I'm Dustin Fletcher, former student athlete at Northern Illinois University and now at the Citadel. I had a question for you, Sam, or really anybody who had an answer for me. So once I'm done playing football and whenever that day is, sales is probably where I'm gonna go with it. Or I'm gonna chase the professional opportunity as long as possible, and then it'll be sales for me. But Sam, since you had some history in sales, I had a question for you. So I reached out to different alumni and things like that about possible internships or what to do going into the sales field. What information or advice would you have for me? Because obviously in sales, it kind of looks a little different. Like you may have to have a certification to do an internship or whatever that looks like. But what advice would you have for somebody trying to enter the sales field and kind of what to do to prepare to find a great job once the time comes?
Yeah, so for sales, awesome question, Dustin. And you know what? It's funny. It's cold call sales. That is the best entry point into sales because it's low risk, right? But it's really high reward. And you will fail many times, right? Because cold calling generally gets you there. It's like the Cutco knives when we were younger, right? You used to go around to people's doors and knock on doors and try to sell knives, right? And your hit rate was probably like 1%, if that. Yeah, but just the
Hey,
effort, the
Dustin, do you
repetitive.
remember back in the olden days when we sold knives door to door?
Pest control nowadays.
I don't think that they did that, Sam, but that was a great example.
Okay,
You sold knives
but
to
right,
people in the neighborhood?
you did. You go around the neighborhood and you sell
Is this
Cutco
in Atlanta
knives.
or Jersey?
This is Jersey, so even
Okay,
worse.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Continue with
yeah.
the story.
Amy,
Sorry.
Amy, I'll jump in. My son, who's only 24, sold Cutco.
There you
Like
go.
recently? Like, oh wow,
Yes.
that's kind of
Yeah,
scary.
back when he
Okay.
was in school. Yep.
Go ahead, Sam. Sorry for the introduction.
But no, it's so Dustin, really, it's like cold call sales because it's really low risk, but it's a really high reward when you do it, and you just hone your skills, right? Being able to read people, interact with people. So a lot of it is psychology, right? Sales is psychology. It's understanding what the person's need is and how can you fulfill that need. So I think if you can get yourself into something like that, great. Even at Costco, they have those they give away the free samples, right? If you can get yourself into that, again, it's not a huge, massive pay amount, but you get to interact with different people of all different sorts and you get to hone your skills. So that's what I would suggest if you want to jump into sales. And I'd be happy to reach out to me after, be happy to talk to you and give you more thoughts. I'm full of them. So, yeah.
No doubt. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry.
Dustin. I'm gonna send you back. Let us know if you do sell knives door to door. They might still do that in Jersey. You never know.
I don't know. That was the only example I had, but
But you cannot pump your own gas in Jersey. I will tell you that. You still can't do that. So, all right, we're going to bring Taylor up in a second, but we have an anonymous question that came in I want to get to that says, when connecting with recruiters, well, this is good for you, Bob. When connecting with recruiters at internship or career fairs, what should students focus on to really stand out? And what's one thing that doesn't usually land well with them?
Yeah, create value. That's the key. I can't tell you how many recruiters tell us, that was really nice meeting this individual. Typical Penn State student, man, smart, sharp, energetic, fun to talk to. I'm not, but the one thing I ever hear as a glitch is I'm not sure what they want. So if you're not creating purpose, you've left them hanging. You buried the lead, if you will, and to use a communications term. So you want to make sure that it's purposeful and that they understand what it is you're looking for and that you've created value towards what you're looking for. So that means that if you want to go into public relations, you should have shared with them, hey, I've got experience in media, developing media kits, writing press releases, social media content development and analytics. I can keep going. And share with them where you landed that experience. It's going to create value for them to go, okay, this is a qualified individual. If you don't do that, that's the biggest flaw. I think that you're really leaving off the table and they're going, well, what makes you different? There isn't a unique selling proposition. And I think you've left them hanging and you probably lost your opportunity.
All right, good advice. We haven't heard from Tori in a little bit, and Taylor has just joined us. So I know, Taylor, you were kind of open to asking your question to anyone. Can you direct it to Tori?
Yes, hello. Well, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Taylor Destin. I am a graduating senior marketing major, strategic communications minor from Houston, Texas, currently attending Howard University. And yes, I can direct my question towards Tori. So, being within this society today, and we focus a lot on like mental health and work-life balance. How do y'all manage work-life balance and just being, doing everything while also being consistent with your work ethic?
That's a good question, especially in big law. Big law does not believe in work-life balance. I think you have to set boundaries at some point. I mean, there are certain things that are emergencies and you have to drop everything, but you have to teach the lawyers to like not be the people that cry wolf all the time. Like an emergency needs to be an emergency. You have to, you be responsive, but if it's not truly an emergency, you can respond, quickly and then just say like, great, when do you need this by? Or like, great, I will get this for you on Monday. Because otherwise they will take every little bit of inch that they can take. And, take your time off. I'm admittedly not good about that, but, take time off, reset, join sports teams like I was before I left New York for a couple of years, like during lockdown, but I'm back now. But, I was a member of like a master swim team, and, I go to the alumni networking stuff with UF. I also attend like the USC stuff, those little outlets, and like making time to like, play with your dog and, have fun with your friends. Like all of that is really necessary. And otherwise you get really burnt out working, 18, 19 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're not showing up as your best self at the end of it. So
even if
rest is
that company
important.
loads up the office with food and beverages,
Yeah,
right,
which
Tori?
we do.
Tell them it's a bait, right, to keep you there longer.
They don't want you to leave. I mean, we have like in our up today, like it's almost like a full pantry, floor to ceiling of like anything you can imagine, because they don't want you to leave. But go outside, go get a cup of coffee outside, like, clear your head.
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's very important that you do put your foot down in these type of environments and just focus on your mental health and have that work-life balance. But thank you for answering my question.
They respect you more when you set boundaries.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Taylor, I think this is a great question for Tori, but I'd really like to hear Sam's response, since he's in the natural health industry and mental health is something we talk about all the time, and you've worked for so many different companies. Can you answer Taylor's question?
So Taylor, it's a great question, and there's no real magic bullet for this for everybody, but I'll tell you what, I think it's setting boundaries. Tori's 100% right, but it's also when you're leading, it's putting your expectations known to those you're requesting things of. Yeah, because that'll come back to you as well. So it's, not everything is a fire, right? And we try to make everything a fire because we can, right? I can fire off an email now and you see it and then you have to respond, or I send a Teams message or something, right? We have all these technologies now to make things turn into fires when they're really not, right? So it's, the story's point is, what are the really things that need to be important? But also, as a leader and requester, you need to tell people how important these are and when you need responses to things. And again, when you're working from home, it's kind of, I'm in my office, I'm also in my home, right? So I have a separate space, which is great, but at the same time, it's in my home, right? So it's this double-edged sword, and my family knows, and I've kind of made it clear in the sense of like, hey, these are my working hours, this is what I do. And when my family's home, I spend time with them. And sometimes I deviate. Okay, I'm not going to say I'm an angel, but I definitely deviate from that. And I think that comes with where I'll stop working and I'll go do something super fun during work hours with them sometimes, because I need to do that in kind of reciprocation to them. So I think it's really an individual and how they're able to shut things down and compartmentalize and kind of keep proceeding. So it's a very individual thing. It's a hard one though. Bob's laughing, so I think Bob probably has something on that one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I'm looking at all these great questions. I wish we had more time.
Well, Bob does work-life balance. He comes into the city yesterday and then goes to dinner with his daughter and then gets home at midnight, right? Like, that's how you do it.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, look, to add to what Sam said, the fact is that we're in a very pressurized world, and people want you to commit, and every job has its commitment. I always say, choose your hard. Everything's hard.
Choose your hard. I like
choose
that.
your hard. It's true. Because if you don't, somebody will for you.
Taylor, back in the olden days, work-life balance was easy because we didn't have cell phones or laptops. And so when we went home, we like truly didn't bring work home. But unfortunately for you all, you have to figure it out. All right, so I'm going to send you back to the audience. Great question. We're getting close to the end. I've got a lot of good questions in here. Bianca keeps loading up the Q&A. So I'm going to ask one of her questions. She's not going to come on camera, but I really liked this one. And I'd like everyone to kind of answer this one. But what are some red flags to look out for when networking that might signal that the connection isn't really authentic or mutually beneficial? Is there some kind of vibe or energy or body language? If you're networking with someone, you're like, okay, I've spent enough time here, move on. And then I'll add to your question, Bianca, how do you leave that conversation gracefully? Tori, you want to go?
I think if they immediately ask you for something, if you don't immediately ask for something right away, and or like a very nervous energy, which generally leads to like an asking directly for something. And like we see it, sometimes the lawyers that I work with, they do the same thing. And sometimes clients will give you a clue, like, don't ask us if we can pitch for this matter until you've invested X, Y, and Z. And then the lawyer, sometimes they lack self-control, impulse control, and they will, immediately ask, next question is like, can I pitch for this? And then it's like you're blackballed. That's it. And it's like, don't ask for something until you've done the investment. It's like going to the store and stealing, a bag of M&Ms. Like, you have to pay for the M&Ms. You have to, it's
earn it. Earn it. Sam,
earn it.
What's a red flag?
Yeah, I think it's the environment where those requests come from too, right? So if you're in a certain environment or an event and it's based on, I don't know, I'll say it's a work event for me, right? And we're at Supply Side Global or something, and somebody's asking me for stuff that makes no sense. I realize it's potentially they're trying to lead me down some other weird path, right? To subscribe to something or do something that I have no desire to do. Yeah. I'm there to try to promote what I'm pushing forward. And I don't mind helping people, again, connecting other people, of course. But if they're coming out of the blue to try to sell me other stuff, it's just like, this is not the place to do that, right? So I think that's another red flag is what's the vibe of the environment and does this make sense? So kind of following up to what Tori said.
Bob, any red flags coming your way?
Yeah. So if a student asks me to connect them to somebody and I feel like it's going to be transactional or they don't have the right intentions, I'm going to let them know. I flat out, I'm pretty blunt about it because I'm gonna coach them up on the right approach. It's absolutely critical. Everything's an interview, whether you believe it or not. And with that interaction in a networking situation, they are sizing you up. They are going, do I want to refer this person on to someone else or refer them to an opportunity? And if you're not handling yourself well, and that they feel this is going to be a hit and run transaction, I'm out the door. I'm walking away from that. It is a long haul and it is relationship building. So that if you give that vibe that you're not providing that relationship approach, I think you've missed the mark.
All right, I'm going to bring Maya back. We had her on first, but she had a really good question for Tori, and I know we're almost at time, but I really want to have her ask this because I think it's excellent. Hi, Maya. You have a question for Tori.
Yes, Tori. So I know you are a boss lady. I love it. And you have been working in male-dominated fields. So I just wanted to know, like, how has networking helped you navigate through these fields, and what advice would you give young women entering these spaces?
Sure. So in legal specifically, while the industry itself is male dominated, believe it or not, the marketing side and the business development side is actually very female dominated. It's almost like a reverse discrimination when we do have a guy that's on our team, but like he actually almost experiences more discrimination from the partners because then they kind of sometimes view him as not, as weaker because he didn't go to law school. It's very interesting dynamic here. But I would say, it's not showing fear. It's about showing up. It's about being intellectually curious. Like just because if you don't understand something that they do, it's okay to ask them the question. Asking the question actually shows them that you understand what you don't understand. And they're more than happy to tell you everything under the sun. And you take that forward and just showing up and being responsive and showing that you know what you're doing, and that they can rely on you. And doing stuff like joining particular legal marketing association is just it's a huge resource and it's a huge wealth of community. Believe it or not, even though it's like all these marketers and business developments from competing firms, that we all come together and share best practices and share how to handle difficult personalities and how to move forward. It's just showing up every day and putting your best foot forward.
Before we let Maya go, Sam, just give us a male perspective. I love this for women. Can you tell us how they can show up better in networking spaces? If it's male dominated, which we see that a lot of times in the natural products industry as well.
And you're not wrong. It is true. And I think Tori brought up a real good point, right? It's everybody has something to share, right? Everybody has an expertise of value. And it's a matter of giving them the opportunity to share that in a forum where they want to share it. So if you're coming to an industry, Tori's right. Kind of let them lead you, let them show you, let them teach you, and kind of utilize that to your advantage for the future, right? And not an advantage in a bad way, just knowledge base to build upon so you can increase your skills or all the tools in your tool bag. Because again, they want to show off that they have more skills, more knowledge. Let them do it. Let them fill your toolkit. It's okay. I like to say 99% of the population has more knowledge than me, and I want to take all of that from them so I can learn from it and be better. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents again.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Maya. I'm going to send you back to the audience. And we are at time, but I have one closing question to ask. So this is going to be a quick fire round to everybody, and we will get it started with Bob. What's one way to turn a quick networking chat into a lasting connection?
Yeah, do your homework on the person you're meeting with. This is a two-way street, and if it's all about you, yeah, they're already checked out in most cases, right? Make it a two-way street. I loved what you said, Amy, about, hey, ask about their kids. You know they have kids because it was brought up in a previous interaction, or something new about maybe they had a promotion. If you aren't bringing that up, boy, you're looking pretty insincere. And I just think that's so critical to remember they're a human being that likes to be patted on the back once in a while too. So show that sincerity.
Agree. Tori, what's one way to turn a quick networking chat into a lasting connection?
Think thoughtful follow-up, finding ways to follow up, and building on what Bob said. It's being genuine, being curious, and thoughtfully coming up with ways to stay in touch.
I like that. Sam, what's one
Yeah,
way to turn a quick networking chat into a lasting connection?
100% it's a follow-up. It's either by a chat or a text or an email. One of my things is always like to kind of reiterate what we talked about. Yeah, throw a couple nuggets in if there's something that I can add value to after, going away, thinking about it. If it could be an article, a link, a book, or whatever it is. If it became personal, mention something about their kids, whatever. Again, there's two reasons for doing that. One is you show your interest and you keep that warm and you keep it moving. Second is it's searchable in the future. Okay. Like that is the true. You got text messages you can check, emails you can check. There's always little hints in there and keywords that you can search for the future in case that person, you need them in the future for something. So
I love that, which
yeah.
is why you should personalize your LinkedIn connections. Because when you do that and you say, oh, I met you at this conference or I saw you on a networking session, then when you have to follow up with them again, you know that there already was a connection there, right, Sam?
100%. Yeah. Context
right.
clues, to call it. I don't know what they call it today, but yeah.
Great advice, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I threw a link to a survey in the chat. Please fill that out. Let us know what you thought. And be sure to join us on November 19th, 12 o'clock. We're going to have another one of these Mentor Skillshare sessions. The topic is going to be on how do I ask for the raise I deserve? So wondering how to get more money or promotion. We're going to address that with our next panel on November 19th. And stay connected with us. Be sure to follow, and everybody here better connect with Sam, Tori, and Bob on LinkedIn. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.